Hi everyone, welcome to Satsang today on a beautiful Sunday. Good to be back with you all. Non-duality and the true nature of the self. You know, every attempt we make in our lives to, no matter what it is, no matter what kind of desire or motivation or aspiration we are acting out, what we want essentially is that experience of being whole, or fullness. We're misguided in the sense that we believe that that fulfillment of my wholeness, that bringing myself to completeness, requires the acquisition of something outside of myself. And that might be a relationship, it might be a career, it might be a certain amount of money or possessions. It could be a moral state, a state of beliefs, or a political state. It could even be the desire, the working towards enlightenment. And then enlightenment becomes this, well, that's the ultimate where I'm going to have and I'm going to be complete. Even enlightenment, which is a completely internal exploration, gets objectified into something external. Now, this is nobody's fault. This is how we were all raised to be. This is the nature of the society in which we live, and it's almost universal around the world. It is universal. There are little pockets where it isn't so, but it is universal that basically I am this person, this individual bound by a body, limited, finite, mortal. I have a birth date. I'm going to have a death date, and I'm in a relationship with the universe, and somehow I've got to work it out to get my needs met and to get the things that I need, and maybe even the things that I want, and a little bit of extra on top of it. Now, notice in our normal way we've been raised, and look at the education system, or political system, or economic system. It's completely that. It is all external. We find some memes on Facebook and the like, but for the most part, if you look at the general tenor and the general education system of our world, it pays no attention to the internal. It pays no attention to introspection. Everything is an examination of the physical world, or a pursuit of something in the physical world. But how can I, if I am, in fact, if the premise is correct, and I am, in fact, limited, mortal, finite by nature, well, then there's absolutely no way I can ever accumulate enough, be it knowledge or relationship or money, to feel whole. I simply can't. It can't be done because I'm not. Because the essential truth is I'm not. And I just have to compensate for that by accumulating as much as I possibly can. Now, with this as the primary point of view, the primary belief system of basically the whole world, you can see how we don't even question whether or not the premise is true. It is a tacit agreement amongst all people. Even in very spiritual circles, I see people seeking enlightenment, right? As if it was some kind of a event, some kind of a magic thing that's going to happen that is going to be acquired out there, and suddenly all my problems are going to vaporize. So when I hear things about, the ultimate self and pure consciousness and the absolute, right, I automatically, simply because of the way we've been trained to think, objectify it. I turn it into some external event or experience. Non-duality, this thread of Vedanta and also in Buddhism and Zen, takes a completely different perspective. It is a completely different point of view. It is not about the acquisition of anything. It's about the true nature of the self. Now, when you're talking about the true nature of something, you're not talking about something that is acquired, right? Your nature is not something that's acquired. The dog didn't acquire the ability to bark. Right? It's inherent in the dog. It is its nature. It didn't have to get it. It didn't have to train for it. It didn't have to pass any exams. It didn't have to go to university. It came already, batteries included. The bark was already there. It's part of what a dog is. So when we're talking about the true nature, we're talking about what you are. And that cannot be anything that is acquired. By definition, if it's acquired, it's not what you are, it's what you have. It's what you've gained, it's what you've learned. So what is this true nature of the self? Now, what I was describing before, reaching for things externally, the leading assumption about my true nature is that I am the body. I am mortal. I am limited. I have a birth date. I have a death date. Well, not yet, but at some point I will. I won't know it, but others will. And this is what I am. I am limited. I am mortal. I am finite. I am destined for whatever. I am confined to my conditioning. I am my conditioning. You can see at the root of it, even though it's not presented that way, this tacit assumption is an assertion of what is absolutely true. And so what I invite when I invite people into satsang is a completely different point of view. And now satsang, I do a lot of different kinds of classes and stuff on different subjects. I just did one on prayer. I just did a tapping video on self-doubt. But when we come to satsang, it isn't about any of the energy stuff, energy work, or the therapeutic stuff, or anything about the path that I laid out, even inner reconciliation, to get you here, to make it easier to come to this place. Satsang is about going directly to the truth, directly to what are you? Who are you? What is the true nature of the self? And to question that fundamental assumption. And at the root of the fundamental assumption, the first thought from which all other thoughts arose and refer to is, I am the body. The experience of a body is identified with by the sense of our unconsciousness, and that it takes root. And the moment consciousness takes on that assumption will become the experienced reality. Now, it isn't reality. What's true about you is the reality. But the moment I believe I am a limited, finite person, a body, confined to this body, I will experience everything as if I am, even though I'm not. Ignorant of that simple fact, we take all of the experience as proof that this is who we are, when in fact your experience is a reflection of the underlying assumption that has gone unscrutinized. And here in satsang, this is what we do. We scrutinize it. What is your true nature? Now, I'm just going to take a brief period of time here because I can't tell you what it is. Because it's beyond what words can describe. It's beyond what the mind can conceive. The mind can only conceive or put words around or describe one thing in terms of something else. So there always has to be two. I'm always describing something other than myself. Can you see that? Which is everything in the universe, right? I look around, anything, I can describe it. I can look at it, oh, it's this long, it's this high, it weighs this much, right? It has these kinds of attributes, right? So that subject-object relationship has to be there in order for the mind to work. Right? Well, the finger can't touch itself. Your eye can't see itself. So you can't know yourself as one thing knows another, because you can't step outside of yourself and look back. You can't do it. And therefore, you discovering your true nature cannot involve the mind and our normal way of accumulating knowledge. It has to be done in a different way. That different way is what is called non-dual self-inquiry. And you can do that dialectically, where we can speak and we can question and point out of the mind into that which is beyond the mind. Because you can go beyond the mind. The mind can't go beyond the mind, but you can, because you are more than the mind. The mind exists because you exist, not the other way around. So you can go beyond it and explore a different way of knowing. The other way of approaching it is meditative, which is a simple witnessing. And so I want to do that right now with you for just a few moments. Just close your eyes and just let your attention sink inside. And by that, I mean, first put your attention simply on the sensations that make up your body. Just feel them, right? Just feel them. Let them flow. Let them be there. Notice how your mind may want to judge them, even just label them. Right? And just notice that, but keep the attention simply on this flow of energy that we call sensation, or the body. And again, there may be resistance to doing this. There may be resistance to the feelings. The sensations may be pleasant or unpleasant. But at this point, we're just witnessing them. We're not doing anything with them. This isn't therapeutic. This isn't even transformational. You're simply observing. The way a scientist would observe a phenomena. Doesn't know what it is, so he's just observing. There's no preconceived notion as to what it is or what it's about or why it's there. And now notice that this flow of sensations and all of the thoughts and everything that are going on are being watched from someplace. That as subtle as it is, a sensation or a thought is also something that's being perceived, which means it's also the object and you are the subject, which means it's not you. That can't describe you because you're looking at it. So you could describe thought, we can describe sensation, we can describe emotion, we can describe the internal experience as easily as we can describe the external experience, although it's more subtle. Some feelings we don't even have words for. Now just notice that what is witnessing all those sensations, you can't witness. You cannot turn the attention around far enough to see the witness. Now just pure observation. Isn't what is witnessing you? And can you go any further? Can you back up any further and witness you? You can't, because you are one. Like the finger touching itself or the eye seeing itself. You simply can't go there. Which means we have gone as far as we can possibly go. This is it. This is the baseline. This is reality. There's nothing behind this. There's nothing more essential. This isn't something we can break it down to the cells, to the molecules, to the atom, to the quantum, and on it goes. We've hit the bottom. The most essential. And what do we find? You. You are there. Now, don't try to do anything with that. Just notice that it's a simple fact. This is your true nature. And it's non-dual. It's nothing complex. It simply means because you are one, you are not two. And because you are not two, you cannot know yourself as an object. That's all there is to non-duality. It takes you to a different way of knowing. This is an intuitive knowing. It is a non-phenomenal recognition. You just know. So I'm going to leave it at that for a while. So you're now going to turn your attention back around and off of trying to see that which can't be seen. Notice once again the flow of thought and emotion and the like. And notice that no matter how intense or active that all gets, and it will get more active the moment we open our eyes, that you never ever leave this place of the pure witness. This is the true awakening. It is not acquired. It is simply the view has been cleared of all the habits of thinking that constantly refer outward. And we brought it all the way back until the mind simply couldn't be used anymore. And then it was just the intuitive knowing, I am. I am the witness of all this. And I can't ever put that into a box or even describe it. The I am is simply infinite. So take a breath and open your eyes. A longer than normal preamble today. I really didn't plan on that. But good to see you all. Funny phrase, isn't it? Because I can't see any of you. You can see. Good to be seen by you all, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to go through now and grab the questions and say hello to everyone. It's really good to have you here. There's Merck and GP. Everyone help their extended family adjusting to the rapid changes of our artificial societal structures crumbling. I'm laughing because it doesn't feel very good, but it is true. That's exactly what's happening. The societal structures are based on our fundamental view of what reality is. In the beginning, I described what that view actually is and how off it is, how wrong it is. It's based on I am the body. So it's inevitable that a false assumption would eventually crumble. It can't help it. Even if it's really believed and got structures that are based on it and they've worked for a while, it has to crumble. The only thing that doesn't crumble is truth. Because truth doesn't require anybody to believe it in order for it to be sustained. A false assumption requires the people to believe it. The truth does not, and that's why the truth will never crumble. That's why Christ said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. These words will never pass away. Hello, Rosario, and hello, Roberto. Roberto is in Madrid now. Very good. Back home, Johanna. Hello from Finland. I just realized something that I think might be helpful to others. Trying to figure out things with the mind actually just delays realization. Yes, I hope that became clear looking at, listening and participating in that meditation. The mind can't, you have to go beyond it. It simply can't do it. It simply can't do it. And just check here, make sure everything is, I'm not seeing any. So and this is a great part of satsang, is to break that habit of trying to conceptualize who you are. Because the moment you form a concept around who you are, you have limited yourself to that. You're no longer, you're now stuck inside this little bubble, your conceptual bubble. And if it's believed, you simply don't let yourself go outside of it. Like the story of the elephant. They train the elephant because the baby elephant gets chained to a stake. Horrible, really. I mean, it's hard to even talk about, but that's how they train them, that the baby elephant is chained to a stake. And as a baby, it can't pull that stake out of the ground. It gets so conditioned into that when it grows up, even though it could easily pull that stake out of the ground and walk away, it doesn't. It assumes that it can't. Right? And the fact that that can happen in animals shows that the assumptions we're dealing with as human beings are not here. Animals have exactly the same experience. Right? The animals that are abused, like rescue animals and stuff, that you simply go to scratch your forehead and they back away because they've been beaten. That kind of conditioning can only become transformed by consistently creating a different environment that it can adapt to. But it's exactly the same with us. These assumptions are not in the mind. They are in the body. And we transcend it by going beyond the mind, going beyond the conceptual, and going beyond the body, which we did in that meditation. You're the observer of sensation and how they flow. And all of the assumptions are nothing more than these kinds of energetic patterns within the system. So when I accepted that the mind just cannot understand this, the perspective shift happened by itself, and the sense of personal self disappeared, just like that. Beautiful. Yeah, because you don't need it. You don't need the mind. As a matter of fact, it gets in the way. You simply cannot use it. And if you do, you will get wrapped up in concepts. And everything is a concept. Non-duality is a concept. Self-inquiry is a concept. It's all concepts. The emptiness of emptiness is a concept. You are not a concept. You're the only thing that isn't. You are the foundation upon which all other concepts have been formed, because a concept is a concept about something. That something can be another concept, and it can actually cascade on and on. But at some point, there is something that was there before the concepts. And that is what this is all about. This is what this inquiry is, getting to what is the original, the primary, the alpha and the omega. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Johanna. Hello, Robbie in Romania. There's Brench, best part of the week. Thank you. Thank you, Brench. I just abbreviated your name, Brent French. Robbie, I've started to apply the accepting things as they are a little more. And one thing that seems to help my inner workings with this practice is accepting the fact that I can't accept initially. Yes, it's paradoxical, isn't it? We go, oh my God, I can't accept that. Oh, I've got to get to the point where I can accept it. See, the beautiful thing about the non-dual approach is that it doesn't have to take sides. You simply are present with whatever happens to be there. I work with a lot of people who are, I can't accept it. I say, so don't accept it. So just be with it, right? Be with both sides. Yeah, but I really want this and I have all this resistance. Well, allow the resistance. Don't resist the resistance. Let it be there. The non-dual position is one of total neutrality. It's total equanimity. It's the peacemaker. It just sits there. Whatever comes up is okay. Whatever comes up is what's supposed to come up. There's no need to judge it. There's no need to criticize it. There's no need to change it. In fact, the mechanism that holds this stuff in place, right, is, in fact, our rejection of it. When I reject something, I I turn it into an entity separate from myself that I am fighting with. Now that's completely within my own mind. There is no entity there that has sentience and power and any ability that can fight me. So I believe there's an entity there that's fighting me. It might be resistance, it might be conditioning, it might be anger, it might be anything. Anything we think we're supposed to get rid of, right? We create an enemy of. And that enemy doesn't actually exist because there's no entity there. Right? You're basically trying to strangle a puppet. There's nobody there. What you're really running into is your belief that there's an entity resisting you, that there's something you have to get rid of. And therefore you experience that in some kind of manifest form. It's just so subtle. And when you get it, it's like, oh my God, everything works this way. Everything. It is all what I happen to believe in. And at the essence of what I happen to believe is a belief about I itself. Getting to the point where you can think, well, oh, it's all being produced by my beliefs. If it isn't properly educated with this kind of non-dual inquiry, and the heart and body not properly prepared, it'll become this diluted version that we call the law of attraction and manifestation and all that, which actually is quite destructive. I've seen it do far more harm to people than to good, because the I has not been questioned. The I am, that sense of I am, is what produces the rest. Like I said, the I am the body thought has produced the world that we're in. It's that one thought. I mention to anybody, well, you're not your body, and they'll go, what? They might say, well, yeah, there's a soul in the body, or they may have philosophically encountered that idea. But probing it to the point where your entire nervous system and your entire life is no longer acting as if it were true, that's a different thing altogether. That requires practice and patience and repetition and a relentless pursuit of self-inquiry. Great to hear that, Robbie. Hello, Ursula, Portugal, Ava in Poland. There's Roberto. I had a dialogue with a friend today about how much we are all Putin. Are we all Putin? Meaning, aren't we all responsible for the 40 wars you said there are in the world at this moment? Of course, my friend did not have a clue what I was talking about. See how far you've come, my friend? Your friend doesn't even, you're so spiritual now, your friend doesn't even know what you're talking about. But we have to be careful when we take that spiritual idea that it's all myself and personalize it. I'm this person, I'm that person. There are times when I will go into the various kinds of structure of power and belief systems that make the world it is what it is. But to simply point the finger at some person and say he's responsible is to completely miss the point that there's entire structures in place that make somebody like Putin possible, and these conflicts possible. And that structure that's in place is these underlying assumptions about the nature of reality, starting primarily with I am the body, I'm a limited mortal, a person in a world that I need to struggle in order to get what I need. That basic point of view makes for all the Putins and Bidens and Trumps and Boris Johnsons and everybody else around the entire world. So the spiritual approach is to recognize that in ways in which I'm not even aware, I am participating in this. And the way we're participating is because we're just unconscious of how we ourselves are acting out the same assumptions, albeit in a different way. And also recognizing that we're participating in structures and of various kinds that are based on all of these assumptions. And they're so uniform, they're so everywhere, they're so pervasive that we can't not engage with them. Unless you're willing to go completely off grid, go off somewhere all by yourself, build everything by hand, right? And live completely disassociated, we're participating in it to a certain degree. Even if I want to go solar, I've got to buy solar panels. I can't unless you make them yourself. We've created this system which we have to work within. So we can't think of ourselves as somehow separate from it all, as somehow I'm above it all. You're not. You drive a car, you go to the grocery store. We participate in this system as it is. So recognizing that, what's the answer? The answer is to truly examine, scrutinize, and transcend this fundamental belief, I am the body. To become truly free of the primary belief around which the entire world is based is the best thing you can do for the world. Now you become a truly alternative influence that begins to touch, so that you can say, well, we're all Putin. Yes, elements of Putin are in every single one of us. He's just another human being that had a crappy childhood, got traumatized, and ended up becoming what he is. Because the way he adjusted, he became, with power and ruthlessness and all of that sort of stuff. I'm crying out loud, he was the head of the KGB. Heads of military, heads of the Secret Service, heads of the spy should never be the leaders of a country. They're not leaders. They're inherent dictators. CEOs should never be leaders. They're inherent dictators. Right? It's just simply the environment in which they have conditioned themselves to succeed. Then we pluck them out and put them in another environment, and we expect them to behave. We invoke the devil. We do a ritual, invoke the devil, and he shows up, and we expect him to behave and do what we want him to do. It's madness. We have to realize that everything that's happening in the world is a reflection of unseen, invisible forces, invisible causes and conditions that we are participating in. You'll hear some Christian ministers talk about evil forces and demonic forces, and they recognize that there's these invisible influences, and then they personalize them. They turn them into entities. They're not entities. They're thought patterns. That's all. They're basic assumptions. They're fundamental assumptions that we've agreed to. If you stop agreeing with those assumptions and start moving towards something completely different, completely eradicating them from the system, you will, in fact, transcend the world. That's what Christ meant when he said, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Right? Now, this is not a guy who traveled all around the world. It's likely he didn't travel very far at all, if at all. There are some stories about him going to India and Tibet and places like that. Maybe it's true. But he certainly didn't travel extensively. So, and yet he could say, I overcame the world. This is the question we should be asking ourselves. How do we overcome the world? Right? Recognizing that, yes, all of the leaders, both ones who try to be benevolent and the ones who are just ruthless, right? The ones who are just making a mess of everything, and those who are trying to make a difference are all part of us, right? Because it's the human patterning of thought. There's only one way for us to deal with that, and that is to remove ourselves from those patterns of thought, to transcend them, to overcome the world. Right? And that's why we're here. Brothers and sisters, we are here to overcome the world. But the world is not something out there you need to overcome. It is something in here that is a set of assumptions. And if you overcome those set of assumptions, you have overcome the world. You have set yourself and the world free. And then your friend might understand you. Hello, Crispin. Good to see you. Good to see you. Carl. Hello, Carl. Hi, everyone. Great to have you here again, GP. you talk about how to manifest from your true self for the good of all? And is there any point in trying to manifest world peace if there is always going to be dark and light in the world? Thank you. I can't say that there's no point in it, right? Everyone here has the desire for world peace, don't we? We have the desire for peace. If, like most, we believe that somehow that's going to be accomplished through getting rid of all the bad people, or through war, sanctions, all the different means we have to try to force people into a different kind of behavior, if we think that's going to make a sustainable peace, we're deeply and totally self-deceived. It's not. It will make no difference whatsoever. Just the next batch of lunatics will emerge, and it will continue. I mean, it's the worst than it's ever been, because now it's institutionalized, it's systematized. There are wars because there are people who profit from war. That's why we have war, because there's resources some people have and we want to get them. I mean, it's kind of the pattern of empire, but it's different than it's ever been before, because the empires, they're not kings and emperors anymore. They're companies, and Wall Street. But look into your heart. Do you not desire peace? Yes, of course we do. But where's that peace to be found? The reason I'm a spiritual teacher and not a politician is because the only place it can be found is here. I have to find that peace that passes all understanding in me, and then allow it to just explode outward and be there in everything that I touch. In that, I become that which transmutes the aggression and conflict into peace. There's got to be a place through which a lens through which conflict and violence and barbarity and all these things pass and become transformed. I mean, remember, these are all just patterns of energy. But there's nothing wrong. The energy is neutral. It's just misshapen. It's out of form. There's got to be some way of passing that energy through some kind of vehicle or prism that transforms it into the light. And you can have a world with darkness and light, right? Contrast, without the how do I put this? I can feel that I can't find words to express this, because it sounds like I'm saying it's all going to be light. No, it is once the opposites have been brought home to non-duality, we find that duality is not a mistake. It is the non-dual known. When it is believed to be an entity in and of itself, separate from its source, it then can get distorted out of shape. The darkness can become evil instead of just the beauty of night, right? Because it has been detached, it has been severed from its roots. Okay? You sever a tree from its roots, and the fruit is going to just turn dark and ugly and die. It's going to, which is what we're experiencing. Connect it back to its roots, and what happens? It takes its most beautiful form. Is the contrast gone? No. Is the play of opposites gone? Absolutely not. But the play of opposites is not self-existent. It is not inherent. It is not self-sustained. It must have its roots to sustain it. And the root is the non-dual reality of the infinitude of the self, the unknowable, infinite, boundless, irreducible, and indivisible self, the self of everything. So the belief that there is that which is actually a manifestation of the self is a self in and of itself is what gives rise to all the rest of it. Our desire for peace, our real desire for peace, and to manifest peace in the world, right, is in fact calling us back to the peace that's here, which has the power to manifest itself in the world. If you see that the world is in the shape it's in because it is disconnected from its own soul, it's disconnected from its own true nature, then you'll see that the mission, your mission in life, is to reconnect to your true nature. And that's all you have to do. Out of that, well, whatever steps you might take in public, whatever you might run for office or do some kind of a protest or just educate or none of the above. Just be really good raising kids or something. It doesn't have to be a great, display. When it's coming from that peace, it will do nothing but reestablish peace everywhere. It becomes the filter. It becomes that film, that line through which the conflict and evil get transformed into the pure goodness. And the pure goodness is simply the nature of the self. It transcends our simply mind-based ideas of what's good, which are always relative and narrow, and it transforms it into the universal good, which is simply love. And that doesn't take away any of the contrast, doesn't take away any of the opportunity to manifest that love, for it to take various kinds of forms of expression, right? It just has so connected now to the source that it can never get a distorted expression anymore. So I hope that answers the question for you, Carl, and for everybody else too, because it can be kind of confusing, and it can seem as though non-duality is like kind of checking out, even a spiritual bypass, as they like to say, and it's not in the slightest. I have overcome the world. That's the message, right? How do you do that, right? I have brought peace to the world. How? By being peace. I walk with peace. I am peace. When you are peace, you don't have to bring it to the world. Since you're in the world, you're it. You've brought it. And the world will come to you. Thanks, Carl. Crispin, is there something like non-dual parenting? My youngest is now in puberty and I feel quite powerless. Well, that's probably the most powerless time a parent is in. Just be glad it's a boy. It's even harder with girls. I didn't have girls, but that's what they tell me. I have 2 granddaughters though, so I will experience it personally. Yes, of course, because the non-dual is is the source and essence and foundation of the duality that we experience, right? So while you're watching this process, the process of life, as the child is transformed, the very same energy is now transformed into the adult, and all sorts of all sorts of things awaken to go with that, bringing about a whole new world. I mean, your son is walking into a completely new world. I mean, it's a transition point of out of childhood, and in our culture, this is all exploited. It isn't nurtured, and so you just be really what happens in puberty and in adolescence is what used to be the child in his imagination can just do whatever they want. It's really, there's no limits. Suddenly now that the sense of identity has to solidify enough for them to function in the world. If that doesn't happen, they are crazy. Because Section 8 and they cannot function in the world. So some functional sense of identity has to emerge, right? An ego has to be formed. Your job is to make such a safe environment that ego will be healthy and not be so attached that it can't be dropped later, right? But it has to happen, right? And that's you see that struggle. That's the angst of teenagers. They want to belong. They want to be independent. There's all these conflicting things. And these days, my God, look at all the information and stuff they're getting, all the forces that have no interest in their well-being. They just want to sell them crap. And in all of these things, I mean, how do they decide who they are? This isn't like 100 years ago where you grew up, you're just like your parent. I mean, it was just rote. You just did it. That's all fallen apart. So be the rock center. Just be the totally loving and accepting environment, no matter what, right? It doesn't mean you might not have to correct them. You might not have to, engage with them in some way. They could become a smart ass, right? Now at this point, dad can't do anything right. And you have to accept that too, and just be present with that, and just look for every opening you can where you can give them the freedom to speak, the freedom to just tell you what's going on, which allows you to enter into an actual dialogue with them, an actual conversation that can help guide them, not by laying anything on them, but by simply listening, being allowing them the freedom to simply express themselves. As long as you're an ally to the process, you are providing them the environment in which they will be successful in finding something that works for them, which is a sense of identity, which is what teenagers have to do in order to be functional as an adult, and do it in such a way that it won't have the same kind of power and pressure that makes them have to cling to it, and makes it more difficult later in life to be able to let go of it. Because that's what has to happen. That's the path. It's childhood, undifferentiated consciousness. As we get older, we have to get into life. We have to function in the world. The ego, which has been starting, now gets solidified into a much more concrete adult identity, right? And it's going to do its thing, but eventually, if the person is ready and they've been prepared enough, the teacher shows up, the Dharma shows up, and the process of now letting go of that takes place. This is what absolutely must happen. This is the path of the human being. So hopefully that gives you something to go with. Never always hold him in your mind as the self. Don't even see it as a kid trying to get there. And certainly don't try to impose anything non-dual on them. They may come to it all by himself, right? And some do. Some come to it early, some not. So don't impose anything, right? Presence, 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 presence. Love, 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 love. No matter what's appearing. So wonderful. Let's see. Hello, Tatiana. So good to see you. There's David and Elaine, Jay, Hari Om Ji, and everyone. Every time a doubt arises, one of your words will come to help eventually, and that word this time was vigilance. Ah, beautiful. I wasn't sure if that was the right word to use when I asked my question on Facebook, but then you're talking about Papa G's story helped. So good. It's not trying harder, but you need to walk the double-edged sword carefully, especially in the initial stages of awakening. Very perceptive. Very perceptive, Jay. You get an A. Yeah, because the tendency of the mind is to take sides. Oh, now I'm non-dual. Reject. But you're just not ready for that yet. There's not been enough preparation. It's not nuanced. You can't grasp the subtleties. That's simply the mind trying to take another position to feel safe and exclude all this other stuff. That's what you see in a lot of Neo-Advaita teaching. Not necessarily that the teachers themselves are there, but the way the teaching is, that's the way most of the time it's being received. And so, yeah, the vigilance is letting yourself mature, that you can discern between the wheat and the tares, right? The good stuff and the bad stuff. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And in the beginning, we don't really see clearly. You're really kind of walking by faith, faith in the truth, faith in the guru, faith in the teachings, and just letting them prove themselves to you. Right? And you become the authority yourself. And so you become much more refined. So you're willing to be with something long enough that the actual nature, that the separation of what is true and what isn't true, which can be very mixed up and confused at first, becomes really clear. And the moment that becomes clear, the false naturally just dissolves away. We don't cling to anything that we know isn't true. And so the moment it's seen, it automatically begins to dissolve. And if that seeing is deep enough, it's held to, even if the habit energy of the false continues to echo through the system for a while afterwards, which it usually does. Let's see. Ida, Kathy, you're brilliant. You love from Norway. Oh, thank you, Ida. Thank you. Play on. Hi, G. And all greetings from Sweden. There's Dale. Hello, Dale. Good to see you. Red rose for you. Hello, Sonia. Can you give some examples of how we can come back to the true self or the now from our usual day-to-day activities or issues that make our mind just get lost in the mind? How do you do it through the day? Wonderful question. Well, that little meditation I did at the beginning, right? It's just constantly reminding yourself, wait a minute, I can feel it in my body. All this stuff's going. You can feel the whole thing going on, right? If you've been practicing allowing and the like I know you have been, at some point in all of that, something will pop up that say, wait a minute, I think there's a way to not be so embroiled in this. And of course, that's already happening for you because that's why you're asking the question. If you can, and sometimes you're in the middle of something or working with others, something has to get done and you can't. But even the idea coming to you that you could will actually have an effect. But if you can just stop what you're doing for a moment, put your attention in the body and just breathe. Just feel the body. Oftentimes, we can't get all the way back to the place of the pure witness. There's so much activity going on in the body. But this is we're retraining ourselves to be present with what is happening. Remember, all this energy is moving you to do things, right? And so when you stop doing those things, to just take a moment to go within, just even a few conscious breaths, you'll feel the momentum. So, no, don't do that. It wants to keep pushing you forward. It just goes, it's okay. I accept that you're here. I accept that this is the momentum. And I'm just going to take a moment here and breathe. Just concentrate on just nice deep breath and slow. Just putting all the attention in the body and just seeing what happens. The body can just keep going. It wants to do stuff. Okay. A couple of deep breaths is enough to shift it over time. You can take a little bit longer. Great. You can take 5 minutes. Better. Right? This is also a place where some tapping can work for those of you that will use EFT. To just go, all right, that's right. Because it's simply, I'm doing a break now. I'm just telling my body it's okay, it's safe. That's what tapping does. It's that simple. And just breathe. And what you're doing is, notice there's a momentum, right, that gets you into this, the mind and the mind getting lost and all that sort of stuff. And you're just breaking that. You're breaking the habit. And every time you do that, the habit gets weaker. So it isn't like a special technique you do and now it's never going to happen again. It's something that you just practice over and over and over again. So just, okay, I'm coming back here. Because every time you do, you've broken that reflex of going and staying there. You've begun to reclaim your authority. That no, I'm the one who determines where my attention goes. I'm the one who determines the state of my body, although I didn't know that before. So all these conditions are determining the state of my body, but I actually have the authority to do it. And this is how I'm asserting that authority. I'm going to do it continually, over and over and over again, until eventually the rest starts to obey me and recognize that I am the authority. I've told this story that Buddha told about the man who had a lot of property, very important man, and he had to go off to war or something like that. And back then, wars weren't an afternoon, right? He left his head servant in charge of all of his things, and he was gone for a long time, 20 years. He's like gone. Well, after a while, the head servant just kind of got settled in, right? It's like, and finally, the head of the household, the master, does come back. Right? He knocks on the front door. Now he looks, he's worn, right? He doesn't look the same. He's kind of beat up and dirty. He's just been off to war for 20 years. And he comes back and they don't recognize him. And they laugh at him when he says who he is. No, he's not. And they toss him out. So he says, look, okay, I'm not the guy, but I really need some help. Can I have a job? And so, okay, yeah, you can clean out the stables. After a while, you get to trust him. Oh, he's a really good worker. He gets in the kitchen, he's in the house. Before you know it, they start to recognize who he is. And little by little, even the head servant, the mind, has to acknowledge that this is the master and becomes subservient to it. And so it's okay that this can take some time. We have relinquished our authority to conditioning, to the world, to other people, to all sorts of things. And as a result, we're in this state and trying to figure things out. It can take a minute to remind us, oh, that's right, I am the authority. And every time I just kind of cut this direct reflex and bring myself back here for a moment, I'm asserting that authority. And the assertion of that authority is gradually breaking that automatic association, that automatic chain of causation that creates all this other stuff to happen. And you will find that little by little, it just becomes less and less and less an issue. You become less and less reactive. Things simply just don't bother you anymore. It will happen. It just might not happen quickly, that's all. Thank you, Sonia. Much love to you, too. Let's see. There's King Dale Clark. Hey, Brother GP Brother, question, if you don't mind, what's your thoughts on people who claim they are spiritual because they're vegan? Is this another mind trap? I ask this because the apparent me finds vegans quite cringeworthy when they put themselves some sort of pedestal because they are vegan. You've heard me say that before, yeah. There's probably there's probably a few people in the world as annoying as vegans. There's plenty of vegans I know. They're very quiet about it. If the only thing available, I, for the most part, am a vegan. But I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm not an evangelical vegan, right? I have all my reasons why I do it. But if I'm with somebody and, all they're having is pizza, I eat the pizza, right? I don't make a big deal. I don't try to turn it into a position. So yes, it's another mind trap. It's an identity. If it's an identity, I have to defend it. I have to make it the identity, the most important thing, right? Yes, it is important. It is important. Anybody who examines the whole way in which meat is produced, the effect it has on the environment, the setting it makes for viruses, most of the dangerous viruses that have run through the world have come from animal agriculture. It's the perfect environment for new viruses and germs and bacteria to mutate. Right? So if you look at it, if you look at the entire thing and the way we do it, and plus looking at the human anatomy, it doesn't need that much meat. And in primitive times, hunter-gatherer times, we didn't eat it that often. It was a specialty. Then we recognize that it's just out of balance. And we naturally begin to embrace much more healthy ways of eating, including less meat until there's none, right? Because we don't really need it now, and it's no longer and we have exhausted it to the point where we basically exhausted meat as a food source, and so we have to adapt ourselves to other food sources. So, which we have the intelligence to do, right? But the moment that becomes a position and self-defining, I've lost it. Yeah. The same people who are spiritual, right? Well, I'm really spiritual, right? It's like, oh my God, they're annoying, yeah, because they're taking the best and turning it into an ego flattery. And so, yeah, it's the person who reminds you, well, I'm a vegan. It's the first thing out of their mind, and usually is, and you just go, oh, that's great. Yeah. That's great. I'm not. Want a burger? You can have some fun with them, I guess. So yes, anything can become an identity. Even non-duality can become an identity, right? You'll hear people just trying to constantly correct you. Oh no, that's not. I see it all the time. So, yes, you're absolutely right. We make these choices for ourselves. Christ said, when you pray, go into the closet and pray in secret, right? Don't tell anybody about your great virtues, right? Just keep them to yourself, right? The energy of somebody who's truly committed to something and is truly living it without advertising it has an energetic feel to it that's completely different and is actually quite much more persuasive, right? Because who's going to become a vegan if it means I have to become this annoying ass, this annoying bore? Well, that's not very attractive. So, I want people to thoroughly investigate the whole process so they can decide for themselves. And I can't do that if I just keep saying, well, I'm a vegan, you should be. So, Melissa, hello, G and everyone. Hello, Melissa. Hello, John. St. Andrews, Scotland. Think we are UTC. Yeah, you're UTC +1 in the UK, right? Because you're on daylight savings time now. Brother G, so thankful to be here. Brent, good to see you. Can you speak on how I am appearing in your finite mind and you are appearing in mine? Is that both our experience are known by the one self? This is a very, okay. For some of you, this might go beyond. So if I go beyond, don't worry about it. Don't even try to consider it. From your perspective, Brent, from anybody here, from your perspective, right? What's the only self, the only entity, the only being that you know for sure actually exists? Just go into that place in yourself. Right? You know you are, right? If I ask, do you exist? You'd have to say yes, right? Because even if you said no, you'd have to exist to say no, right? Okay. So, given that, you know that you are. How do you know that I am? When you say that you are appearing in my mind, is that not just a thought in yours? This is a very deep pondering. I only know my own existence. I cannot testify to the existence of anything else. When I'm asleep at night in bed and I am having a dream, I believe in the dream, it appears I'm talking to all sorts of other people. I'm having interactions. I'm doing stuff with them. I'm having experiences with people and objects and animals and all sorts of things. Right? None of them are actually there. My perspective at the time is that they are entities that I'm having a conversation with. Upon awakening, I realized they're not. It was all me. There was only myself. The awakening from the quote-unquote waking dream is exactly the same. Now, this is a mind blower. This is something that's very difficult. What are all these other? Well, just like when you wake up at night, or wake up from a dream, you realize they were all you. There's no difference. You are all there is. Now, if you think of yourself as a finite mind, as someone and other finite minds, I'm a person and the world is a bunch of persons, then when I say there's nothing but me, you'll get really confused. The ego, there's nothing but me, and you get into solipsism. But I'm not talking about that. I am not talking about a personal sense of I am all there is. I'm talking about the universal sense. The only thing that can say I am all that is that which is all there is, the one. Now, When you go into that place, you find that you are the reality. Is that not that one? That one has had projected on it the sense of being a person, and from the person creates a world of persons. But it doesn't change the fact that you are the self and there are no other selves. And so what you are experiencing right now as me is in fact you experiencing yourself. There is no me. There is no you. There is no universe. There is only the self. And I am that. I'll leave it at that. Ponder it. Chew it over. One of the very first things that Nisargadatta's guru said to him when he first met him was, only you exist. Give no reality to anything other than yourself. He said, only I exist. He said, I puzzled over it. He said, didn't understand it, but I trusted him. I trusted that what he was telling me was the truth, and so I just puzzled over it, contemplated, I chewed it over, and he said, I found he was correct. But who is the I that is the only I? Pronouncement of the Buddha, I am the Buddha. Buddha is a word that means the awakened one. Not someone who has awakened, but the one that has awakened to its own oneness. One without a second. The infinite self. How's that, Brother Brent? Lovely. Hello, Peter. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for speaking from the heart and sharing beautiful tools from the source. Oh, you're so welcome, Peter. It's Hendrik from Lake Constance. I've heard the sentence, what is perceived cannot itself perceive. That was helpful. May you expose on that or expand on that, I think you mean. Great thankfulness for your satsang is here. Well, thank you, Hendrik. Well, yeah, let's not make it too weird, right? The finger can't touch itself. The scale can't weigh itself, right? A knife can't cut itself. Why? Because it's one. In order to act on something, including perception, there has to be two. So, the first half of that is, can what is perceived be myself? Well, no. Anything I perceive cannot be me. It cannot be what I essentially am, because I am perceiving it. The act of perceiving is an act of duality. There has to be two. Now, you are not two. You cannot step outside of your own self and look back at yourself. You cannot get out of consciousness over here to look at consciousness, because it's what you are. It is indivisible. So you cannot perceive itself. The perceiver cannot be perceived, cannot be self-perceived. Now, this is kind of mind-blowing. And the reason it's mind-blowing, and the reason it actually gets a little bit difficult for people to grasp, is because we're so used to thinking of, when I use the word I or me, I have an image of somebody. If I ask you to, to picture yourself in your mind, it will be a picture of you. Right? That is a picture of what you would look like to somebody else, or like you look like in a mirror, in a video, or in a photograph or something. Right? Most people, it's like, probably the upper body and the like. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If I say picture yourself, that's what you'll do. And then I go, but that picture you have, and say that's myself. You've never seen that. You've seen pictures of it. You've seen reflections of it, but you've never directly seen you. Now, that's a simple fact. You have never in your life perceived yourself. But our habit of thinking is such that the mind needs to have some kind of a form, a reference point for the I, it references the body. Oh, this is the body. Well, this is what it looks like. This is what I look like. Look in the mirror, right? This is what I look like. But that's an object of mind. It's not the reality. It's not really what you experience. So take that same picture now and keep moving closer and closer. What do you look like from a distance of 0? You cannot perceive yourself. You can't do it. Now, here's the big piece. Since if you look at human knowledge, it's all descriptive. Right? Science is descriptive. Nobody has seen an atom. There's something there, apparently, and we describe its behavior, and from its behavior we kind of try to deduce what it is, but we can't actually do it. We cannot see it. We cannot even come close to it. It's beyond our perception. So we're looking at what's happening around it. We're and describing it, but the thing itself can't be seen. It's like a black hole, right? So, but all human knowledge is based on that. All human knowledge, all of it, requires subject and object. It is always the describing of something in terms of something else. I'm here, this is over there, I describe it. I describe it at this level, then this level, and this level. And depending on where I'm at, I can describe it poetically, or I can describe it perfunctorily. Its function over here, or I can dive down and look at the piece parts. I go to the atoms and take the whole thing about. I can describe the same thing in an infinite number of ways. That's knowledge. That's the sum total of our knowledge. And there's billions and billions of books and studies and blogs and all sorts of stuff, right? Okay, now if I don't have that subject-object relationship, all human knowledge is out the window. It's useless unless there's two, unless there's a subject and an object. It's useless. Scientific method, classical analysis, all the ways in which we quote unquote know something do not apply. Right? So now I cannot perceive myself. How do I know myself? Well, I can't know myself in any of the normal dialectic ways we do it. No thought of me, which is simply knowledge, can be accurate. Description at best, a pointer at best, but it can never actually capture it. So then how do I know myself? Well, you can't. Not that way. So it becomes a different kind of knowing, a non-dual knowing, a non-phenomenal recognition is how Muji puts it. Do you know you exist? Of course you do. How do you know? You're not looking at it. It's not studying it. You're not nothing like that. Dive deep inside and you'll feel that you'll note that there's just a sense I am. You didn't create it. It doesn't come and go. It apparently has doesn't seem to have a beginning or an end. Right? It doesn't seem to even be in time. It's just here. It just is. This is the Vedanta, the end of knowledge. Knowledge can't go here. This is a different kind of knowing. This is jnana knowledge, direct perception of reality. And I am that reality being directly perceived. That is, I know myself because I am myself. The knowing and being are one. Again, this is very deep. If any of this went by you, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't try to force yourself, but allow this to to penetrate you. Because the beauty of this is because it isn't human knowledge. It's a different kind of, it's an intuitive, direct knowledge. You don't need any education. You don't need any prerequisites. You don't need an advanced degree. You don't need any special training. You don't need any special training to perceive yourself. If I ask you, do you exist? You answer, yes, I do. And I go, how do you know? You do not need any special. You are as qualified as the most educated person in the whole world. You're as qualified as the guy with the biggest IQ in the world, which I think now is actually a girl. Right? You are as qualified as them for this because they can't perceive themselves either. They're really good at describing what's going on out here, but they have no more capacity to describe what's going on as that what is the actual perceiver, even perceiving all the description, than you do. You are the ultimate and only authority for this knowing. So, how's that set with you, Hendrik? Is that helping? Jay, on a side note, in the welcoming video of Delusion to Waking, I was kind of concerned when the technology you were using was acting up. You sounded like you were losing hope for a moment. I thought you were teaching something. No. I fixed it, by the way. I just forgot to take that out. I was sitting here. I was all set up. And it took a while to get everything set up. I had everything ready. And I was all ready to go and deliver it. And just as I started, the furnace turned on. I'm down in my son's basement. The furnace turned. When it turns on, it's really loud. And I'm all set to go. I'm right in the middle of it, and all the thing goes on. And I went, oh, and I dropped the F-bomb. And I just kind of sat there. I had to wait until it turned off. Later, checking the video, I found that the mic I have, which a really good mic, filtered almost all of it out, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But no, I wasn't. It wasn't a teaching moment. It was me just going, oh, fuck. Basically, that was it. So maybe that does constitute a teaching moment. I don't know. Though I did learn this is what being a human being is. When it happens, let it happen and don't make a big deal out of it. And after it happens, move on. Yeah, there's no need for a story about it. Yeah, these things are going to happen, right? If you think they're not, oh my God, that's when the universe dumps the hot soup in your lap. Do not see yourself as beyond any of this. Right? The reactions are going to happen. If I've taken a position, now I'm a spiritual guy, right? I can't let that happen. Now I've taken another position, and that which has happened now becomes an enemy, and I'm stuck in another identity. Now, I did edit it out and fixed it and put the new one up there. I don't want that up there for posterity. But but you can see, yeah, you can if you make a story out of it. What was it? Yeah. It's like that moment. I'm ready to go. I'm starting. The words are starting to come, and all of a sudden, bam. It's like, yes. Right? And it evoked from me the expletive. Which a few of you got to hear. Somebody actually even pointed out to me because I completely missed it in the editing, which I could also react to. The fact that it got out. Oh my God, my image is blown. I don't have an image. Everybody knows that. So thanks, Jay. Annie, namaste, GP. Your satsangs are such a beautiful gift. Stay blessed in millions of ways. Oh, thank you, Annie. Annie. Annie? I'm going to say Annie till you correct me. Sean, is it possible to experience the senses without thought interfering? Even really subtle nonverbal thoughts or beliefs? I feel like I'm trying to drop thoughts and still super subtle ones hang on. Don't try. Don't try. This is not a practice to try to drop thoughts. You're actually observing what's happening. You are actually always experiencing the senses without thought. Right? It's just we've habitually put emphasis on the thoughts, which couldn't be there if the sensations weren't there first. Right? The thoughts are always reactive. They're always down the line, right? As our emotions, right? There's the pure experience, which is what we call sensation, And then there's the reactive patterns in the system. So they're always secondary. So your actual experience of sensation is always without thought. Thought gets added on later. Now, drop the idea that somehow you're trying to drop thoughts. You're not. You're shifting your relationship to thoughts. If I say I'm trying to drop thoughts, you've made thoughts into an entity that somehow you have to get rid of. And that belief will actually create thoughts for you to have to get rid of. But if in fact you go, oh, it's just the thought appearing, it has no real origin, it has no meaning, it has no depth, there's nothing to it whatsoever unless I say there is. And now you can be present with sensation, emotion, and thought. Because the fact of the matter is, they are all simply different vibrational frequencies of the same thing. The sensation is it appears as if it's the body. Emotion it appears as if it's something inside the body, or a reaction to the body, and thoughts it appears as a describer of it. They are all different vibrations of the same thing. It's like the same string plucked open makes one sound, put your finger here, makes another, put your finger here, makes another. It's all the same string. In Vipassana, they call it sensation. They say that emotion and thought are all sensation. And from that perspective of something I'm simply perceiving, right, that would be accurate. You could do that. I think it gets confusing because most people think of the sensations as the senses. So I don't do that. I just say they're all vibrations, right? What's vibrating? Consciousness. That's what's vibrating. The substance that appears as sensation, emotion, and thought is consciousness. Consciousness is not something perceiving them, which means you have to get rid of all of these guys or quiet them or drop them in some way. They are consciousness in manifest form. They're consciousness vibrating. They're the pure absolute vibrating, right? You see it as a vibration. I mean, it's a metaphor, so you can't really describe this kind of thing. But remember, in true non-duality is both non-dual and non-dual, right? It is transcendent of both. So the ultimate reality appears as sensation, emotion, and thought. And so the body is nothing but this vibration. There is no body per se that has sensations. All there is sensation, and the mind has called that a body, made an object out of it. Right? And then we think consciousness is something somewhere else that is perceiving this, and that these guys are this world out there. They're not. Consciousness is the field that itself vibrates, like the ocean produces the waves. It produces the currents. Right? Consciousness self-modulates, and that self-modulation is what consciousness itself experiences as, and we can label as sensation, emotion, and thought, but in fact, it's simply consciousness experiencing itself. We don't even need those labels anymore. I am that. I am all. The only thing I ever experience is me. And notice, your experience of absolutely everything is nothing other than sensation, emotion, and thought. That's the only experience you ever have, which means it's all me. How's that for you, Sean? Great question. And notice the thing about subtle thoughts, there's also subtle sensations, there's subtle feelings, there's things so subtle we don't have words for them. We don't even have a thought for it. We don't have a name for it. Okay? Just notice that no matter how subtle it is, its subtlety could only be measured by something that was even more subtle, which is you. The subtlest of all is that which is beyond even all subtlety. It's you. It's consciousness itself. It is the self. It's you. Oh, thanks for answering, brother. You're so welcome. Kingdale Clark. Carlucci. Thanks for that answer, GP. Oops. I love the teddy bear in the background for all the inner children you helped bring to the basement. Yes, that's bring out of the basement. Yes. My current abode which I'm looking for. I think I found an apartment in a week or two. I should to do the paperwork tomorrow, and I should have a new place to stay. But right now, I'm living in the family room / playroom. That's only one. There's like a bunch of them over there, and there's the ukulele, which actually isn't a toy. Played a little drum and stuff. So I live in the playroom. Satsang from the playroom. So yes, this is for all your inner children to play with, right? Because they're all welcome here. You say Yalim. Hello from Arizona. Arizona. Don't know how to pronounce that. We're in Arizona. My son lives in Tempe. Wonderful to have you. I think you are new. Ava, thank you for your answer to Sonia. So simple to do. Only I need not to forget this advice, and often I do it daily. It's okay to forget, right? Oh my God, I forgot. Don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. Even put reminders up. Ugh, keep hitting the mic. Put Post-its on your mirror or something like that. Or settle the timer on your phone. Right? Beep time. Time to just kind of check in. That was kind of the thinking behind the Pomodoro method, right? Of working, where you'd work in half-hour stretches, 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, and after 4 of those segments, you take a half hour. It's kind of, I tried it a bit. It wasn't all that effective for me, but there's a lot of wisdom in just stopping, especially if you finish one task. Oftentimes people, okay, what's next? They grab the next thing on their inbox from the desk or go back to their email, right? Just stop. Okay, I'm done. Let's have a reward. Yay, I'm done. I finished that. Yay, let's celebrate. Have a little party, and get a tea or something. Then on to the next thing. You will remember, Ava. King Dale, you spoke about LOA before, law of attraction, and how it can be more dangerous actually than good. Recently, I realized how easily influenced people are by the promise. If they do something that this YouTuber says, they will be somewhere better than they are. Of course, the donations flow in, and many never get to where they had hoped. Will this ever end? Yeah, it will. The whole law of attraction phenomena actually had at its roots a significant insight. It actually started in the West 100 plus years ago, 120 years ago, even longer than that. Back in the late 19th century, the late 1800s, there was a whole thing. It was the discovery of hypnosis, right? From the Western perspective. A lot of these things were already known, right? And it got kind of codified into what we now call the New Thought churches, the New Thought movement, and some of the other things that were just more on the spiritualism side, like theosophy and the like. But at its roots, I studied that stuff for a while, and once I discovered the Eastern philosophy and the yogic practices, and eventually non-duality, I recognized where their origins came from, and how they were just kind of distorted by the Western mind because they just couldn't be absorbed. If the same people that had run into what became the New Thought had been in India, it wouldn't have been a problem at all, because there was a long tradition of that sort of thing that it would have been or even Native Americans, they'll have some experiences, and out comes the shaman, go, yep, I know what this is, because they're used to these transcendent states, where in the West we're not. It was very logical. It was very scientific, right? Matter of fact, one of them was called Christian Science, right? It became very logical, but there was a deeply profound insight at the root. Well, they kind of got buried, but then reemerged again, right, in the New Thought churches with the Course in Miracles. And then in the 80s, there was this whole expansion, which eventually in the 90s ended up, there was the law of attraction, which seemed like this thing. I mean, this was simply the yogic powers of manifestation, which sages have warned against pursuing forever, right? But it emerged in a highly materialistic and self-absorbed culture. And so it all got taught about me getting what I want, and materialism, having more of this, more of that. And it was a perfect philosophy for both for those who were easily deceived, those who were weak and vulnerable, and for con men. Like now, I don't think most of them were con men. I think most of them did believe it in it. I think there's some, but and it's perfect because it never blames itself. Well, it's a law. If it didn't apply, you just didn't apply it right. It's your fault, right? I mean, it's perfect. There's no culpability to it. I mean, if a doctor does something wrong, you have a malpractice suit. If the law of attraction teacher does something wrong, it's like, well, it's your fault. You know, it's like the doctor saying, oh, yeah, I know I did the wrong kidney, but you just didn't give me that kidney to work with. Oops. Yeah. And so it became, but the important thing is that at its root was a sense that there's more to this than I believed. I don't have to be a victim. I can participate more fully in the creation of the life. But once again, there was no preparation of the heart. There was no depth of understanding. It became really just, I'm just going to make myself do this. I'm going to grab onto this, because underneath all they wanted was more of the material stuff, because the underlying assumption was the happiness is in the stuff, right? The best life is in the stuff, as I was saying right at the very beginning of this thing, a basic assumption the world is working under. And that got usurped right into it too. I saw it happen very early on. I tried for a while teaching some things about the law of attraction, try to kind of raise the bar. I had a few people come in and see through the illusion, and they're actually still students of mine. But then eventually I just completely removed myself from it. I took all of the any video I'd made about it, I took off of YouTube, because the association, I was so totally negative. It was, as far as I'm concerned, unredeemable. So I didn't even bother with it any longer. And so, yeah, will it ever end? Sure. With the awakening, it ends for you. It ends with the awakening. You know, as long as we're in just kind of the grotesque materialism of this time, even really good stuff will be misinterpreted and be taken within the context of materialism and applied to that means. People meditate not to find out who they are, but for relaxation. There's abundance meditations and relationship meditations and all sorts of things. Meditation has nothing to do with any of that. That's not what it was for. Yoga, which, you know, there are 8 paths of yoga, you know, the hatha yoga, which is the exercise, is the most primitive. It's the most base, right? It really is just a preparation for the other forms of yoga. The highest being jnana yoga, which is non-duality, right? And what do we have? What do we have in the West? It's exercise. People talk about yoga. What are they talking about? Exercise. People bending themselves, you know, and knots. People can do these, you know, these great physical feats, and then, you know, at the end of the class, there's a 3-minute meditation or something like that. So this is the West. This is the Western mentality. This is the just the gross materialism of our time, and it dilutes everything down into that, because it cannot see, because it's so blinded by that, it cannot see what this is in the context of it, in the true context. And so you get the new wine coming into old wineskins, and it doesn't work. That's the reason I created that course that I did about 3 years ago, longer now, and I just re-released, called From Delusion to Awakening, to try to map out a path of preparation so that the non-dual inquiry can come into an environment that has matured enough that it can receive it on its own terms and isn't constantly being misinterpreted, right? Because we take the ideas, but don't realize that the context that we're receiving them in cannot receive those ideas and will inevitably distort them. So that's I created that class for that reason. It's on my mailing. I emailed about it. I will be through the week. I just launched it this week, so I'm offering it at a discount. But my whole mission with inner reconciliation and all these processes was to provide that spiritual education that brought you to the context in which the deeper things could be truly understood and not misinterpreted, and thus, the benefit lost. It can be even a worse darkness, which I think the law of attraction has become. So, very good. Very good. Thank you for that question, King, Your Highness. Power is consensual. Great name. I think you might be new. This is good stuff. Thank you, GP. Sorry, better. This is brilliant. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It is brilliant. And I say that in utter humility. It's not me. Everything I share with you is what's told to me. And it is brilliant because you see the perfection of it, the internal consistency, the totality, the comprehensiveness of it. Nothing is left out. Nothing is explained away. Nothing is denied. It has room for absolutely everything, which is why it is not just mind, it is heart. Great. Thank you, Hendrik. Oh, glad it was good. Earth Birth. Thanks, G. You are a blessing to the universe. Thank you, Earth Birth. A great name. David and Elaine, we love your answer to Brent, GP. Your insights touch us so deeply and resonate so completely with us at a level of knowing and understanding that transcends thought. Beautiful words. Thank you. You're so welcome. Yeah. Yes, what I was talking about with Brent is one of the more, could say, advanced things that takes preparation to get there. Otherwise, you end up in really weird places like solipsism, and or you just or nihilism, or you just get the flat out rejection of it by people, which is worthy of it. That is worthy of it. Because I'm trying to make the individual person the self. Well, it's not. It is that which appears to the self. So we have to go beyond it. Beautiful. Dale, hey, Dale, good to see you. Hello, consciousness, or myself. Welcome, my friend. So good to see you. And thank you, Dave and Elaine, if I didn't say it before. Thank you. There's Susanna. Oops, I'm late. It's okay. You're forgiven. Fashionably late. As any good creative rebel would be. Hey, GP, I think you should play music for the intros, perhaps, and then go into satsang. Just thought. Well, thank you. Maybe I might. I haven't done that in a while. When I was in Germany, I didn't have my tongue drum, but I have it now because I'm back here. My son was holding on to it for me. Barbara, give up on Europe and we'll stay in the U.S. I have to be here for a while. There's some things I have to take care of, and the like, some personal things, and I have to. I definitely want to come back. I definitely want to do events there. I'm just not sure how or when I'm going to be able to do it. My life changed quite dramatically over that period of time that I was there, over this last year, really. And so I'm going to get a place here to stabilize. There's a lot of things that are going on, maybe forming a business in Canada. So it's all up in the air right now again. So I'm definitely open to it. I am definitely planning on making trips there to do events just as soon as I get enough people assembled somewhere to be able to do it. No, I haven't given up. Yeah. Just, life happens. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? Eva, yes. How can I drop or get rid of some thoughts when they are myself vibrating? So obvious, yes. This is the non-dual part of it. That you don't have to get rid of thoughts. They're you. We make them entities we have to get rid of, and now they're not you. Right? But if they are me, then well, what's the problem, right? I just happen to know, well, look at, there's that thought. How could that thought be there? Could any thought, could any sensation or emotion appear if you weren't there to experience it? It can't exist without you. So it doesn't take a huge stretch to go, well, they are me. They're not there unless I'm here. So they're me. They're a part of me. They're dependent on me. They come from me. They don't come from out there somewhere. There's no repository of thoughts waiting off stage, right, to hop on and do their dance and go off. Where do they come from? They arise spontaneously out of me. They are me. I don't have to fight them anymore. And the only reason they seem difficult is because I've made them into an enemy, and because the thoughts are not about me as consciousness. They're about me as this idea, I am the body. That thought, I am the body, gives rise to all of those. So it seems as if, right, they're antagonistic to you, but in fact, it's just the wrong thought. Just go, oh, I'm not that I. I'm the I from which they have emerged. I am their source. I am their very being. Therefore, they are me. And that I am the body thought begins to dissolve. Sweet. GP, what's your view on the dangerous idea of breatharianism, the belief that one can live without food and water? Well, as long as anything is a belief, it requires somebody to believe it in order to be sustained. There's stories of yogis and mystics and the like who have gone without food and stuff like that. I mean, there's even one guy, he's called a Pilot Baba, because he was a fighter pilot during some war in India, and became a yogi, and he would do these incredible feats like get buried alive for 3 days and then come out, go into this meditative state. They had him in a glass container, it was like 200 degrees inside, no effect on him whatsoever. So he demonstrated all these capacities of mind over circumstance. Well, Wim Hof is another one, hiked Mount Everest, in shorts, no shirt, right, barefoot, can endure incredible cold and all that sort of stuff. It appears miraculous to the human mind because we believe that matter is absolute and everybody should be freezing, but it's all thought, it's all mind. And these guys, through techniques, not through the direct understanding that it's only a thought, but through various techniques, gave them permission to transcend it, and therefore have what we would regard as miracles. Breatharianism can work in the same way. But I don't regard it, you regard it, I mean, it's possible that somebody could basically starve themselves to death. But I would think at a certain point they become so weak and frail that they'd either be hospitalized and force-fed intravenously, or they would just go, my God, I'm dying. I don't want to die. I'm supposed to be sustained and have a better life as a breatharian, not a worse one. I think the likelihood of somebody actually killing themselves because of that, but like anything, we have all these, the danger really is we've got to transcend the idea I am the body. If I am not the body, then it doesn't matter anymore, right? Breatharian, this technique or that technique, they can all just be something useful for the moment, right? Yeah. So to be hydrated in a few days. So there's always going to be people moving around upstairs. There's always going to be some kind of I can't wait to have my own place. There's always going to be different ideas and philosophies that emerge, some like breatharian, and even cult things, like the David Koresh and who was it, Jim Jones, and I mean, Trump is a cult, for crying out. There's all sorts of these things are going to emerge, QAnon and all that, that are all going to be different degrees of dangerous, dangerous to themselves, dangerous to the cultures, as making a mess, basically, right? So again, my advice is always the same. Know who you are. Become somebody who can't be fooled, right? And with so much compassion that you can just let people do their thing when they're doing it, even if it takes them all the way to the end. But when the opportunity is there to raise them higher, to be present in compassion, you take it. That's the mission. So thank God we don't have to dissect, this particular sect or this particular cult or this particular philosophy or this particular idea. You can see in a heartbeat, when you know who you are, when you know the truth of being, you can see in a heartbeat where that particular point of view is coming from, what its origin is, and you can see that the origin is false. And if the origin is false, the outcome of it is going to be false. And in that seeing, you may or may not have the opportunity to bring them into that seeing. It depends how intensely identified they are with the particular form that it's taken. Sometimes people they cannot question that assumption. Talk to a white supremacist, they cannot question the validity of their premise, or a flat earther or a Christian, right? They can't even allow themselves to question the assumption. They don't give themselves that kind of freedom. I saw a very funny thing. There was this show that did genetics and the like, and there was a white supremacist was on there, and they did his DNA reading and all of that kind of stuff. And then he got back the results, and he was 15% black. And he was, boy, did he raise it. Did he raise holy hell? Oh, it's categorized. It was like he couldn't confront the fact that there's that in all of us. That's where we came from. That's where this whole body thing emerged. So yes, we all have it, right? He could not fathom that. Right? He wouldn't even question it. The whole structure of identity was so wrapped up in it, and he was so insecure. As we get, the more fundamentalist you get, the less secure you are. So the more tightly you're clinging to this belief system. So the I am the body has gone to another level, which is I am this belief. I am this system of thinking. You cannot take it away. To try to take it away they'll get violent, because you're basically trying to kill them. That's how it's interpreted anyway. So it's kind of far afield from where you started there. Where'd you go on breatharianism? But I think hopefully makes a good point. There's a Facebook user. Heart and prayer to you too. Roseanne. Hello, Roseanne. Thank you for this. We were neighbors before. I grew up in Arlington Heights. Could you explain why non-duality speakers say they don't experience anything anymore? Thanks. Well, I'd have to understand, really, in order to accurately talk about a particular speaker. I would have to I would have to know what they were saying, right, to try to discern that that maybe they were saying something different and you misheard. Maybe they don't really know what they're talking about. Maybe they don't know how to teach very well, all of which are possibilities. But on the surface, they don't experience anything anymore. Obviously it's impossible, right? They couldn't say, I don't experience anything anymore, without experiencing. You couldn't make a reference to it without having the experience, right? What I think they are trying to say, if they're a true teacher of non-duality, is that I don't experience the world as an external reality anymore. It's not that it's all you hear is people say nothing exists. Well, that's nonsense, right? You have to go all the way, and this is what Ramana said. People would attribute that to Ramana, would say that nothing exists. No, nothing exists separate from you, which means everything is included in you. So our experience is always of ourselves. And because it is ourselves, it's not some object out there. So I'm not experiencing something out there. I'm experiencing myself in that form. So I can say there is no world, right? there is no world separate from myself. There isn't an independently existing, self-existent world. This is what in Buddhism, what Buddha referred to as no self. It has no inherent qualities. All the qualities that we experience of what we call the world are in fact the self being reflected, the self pondering it itself. And so you're always experiencing, right? When you get right down to it, to the root, experiencing is what you are. Without experiencing, without self-knowing, there'd be no existence, right? It'd be like a rock, right? It's existence without a conscious awareness. It's not possible. There must be conscious awareness. In Hindu, they refer to Sat, Chit, Ananda, which means being, existing, consciousness, awareness, and Ananda. That these three are one. Ananda, which is bliss, the bliss of knowing that you alone are. And so being and knowing, or being and experiencing, are one. So experiencing is what you are. Now, you can't experience yourself, like I was talking before about you cannot perceive yourself because you're not an object to be perceived. You perceive yourself in that which reflects you. Like music couldn't perceive itself without a song. And so music knows itself through the songs, right? They're all music. I can point to every song that's ever been written, every piece that's ever been written, ever been played, ever been performed. That is music. It's not all there is to music. Right? That's the manifestation of that underlying principle. I always use that as a good metaphor. So they're not experiencing, if they're true, they're not experiencing as a person anymore. It's not a personal experience, which means there's no discord, there's no suffering, there's no inner conflict. It is just the pure experience, the pure flow of being. But I recognize that this pure flowing of being is not something separate from myself. And so in that sense, I'm not experiencing anything. I'm always experiencing myself. It doesn't mean experiencing doesn't exist. It's just there's no experience of external. It is the singularity. It is the unity of being. And so I hope that answers it for you. I hope that gets close. And yeah, Arlington Heights. When I was a kid, cost 15 cents to get on the Northwest Railroad, take it from Palatine to Arlington Heights, where I would go to the movie theater, the Arlington Heights movie theater, which was just a block away from the train station. I loved to go in the summer because it was air conditioned, and nobody had air conditioning at the time. Ah, yes, Arlington Heights, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, yep, good old Midwest. Wonderful to have you here, Roseanne. Please let me know if that answer resonated with you. Yes, G, thank you. You're welcome. Mindful Zero. Based on the answer you have before, LOA, and as I'm going through your Aya course, can I have both being awakened, which I am, and also manifest the dream life as long as I'm not dependent on the manifested world and things? I do want an amazing, extraordinary life, and I feel I know myself now. Of the thoughts, buddy? Do I just go deeper and then enjoy the manifestation but not hold on? Thanks, G. Here's the clue. Here's the key to that. Manifestation is always happening. Don't put any intention on trying to make a manifestation happen. The intention to make something happen is the ego. It wants to turn manifestation into an act of will, so the ego gets what it wants. And what it wants is always something finite, limited, and eventually destructive. Always, right? So don't go there, right? In that level one, I even call it intentional manifestation of inner reconciliation. I talk about how the whole process works, right? Little by little, bringing people out of that to see that manifestation simply happens. It's always happening. Everything is a manifestation. The more you know who you are, the less inner conflict there is, the more harmonious of a manifestation there's going to be. So when you say, like, I have a desire for an amazing life, Of course, we all do. So here's what I want you to do. Allow that desire was not your creation. It's just natural. Like blinking, growing hair, our desires are natural. They're part of the human experience. When a desire arises and the ego grabs a hold of it, because the ego says, I'm not having an extraordinary life. I don't have that. I've got to get that. And now you're on the path. You are going away from the self towards the shiny object, right? And notice that in that gap there's the sense I don't have an extraordinary life. So my affirmation the entire time is I don't have an extraordinary life, but I will. What inner reconciliation is trying to bring you to is to the reality of your harmonious life, which can then manifest itself, right? But you putting your attention there and completely letting go of your attachment to the results, right, will be how you come to yourself. Because even that, the ego will go, oh, okay, I let go of the attachment to the results, then I'll get the results. And it's like, okay, I let go. Are they here? I let go. Are they here? It's constantly, it's got to really be let go. Let go. Let go of everything. Be empty, right? There's a desire there. Great. I let go of it. Do whatever you need to do, desire, right? It's not mine to do anything with. It's not personal. There's fear over there. Okay, let fear be over there. Let go. Take your hands off. Be empty. Put no emphasis on the future, on what might be, on the great life I might want to have. Not even on being enlightened. There's a desire for great life. Of course, it's in every single human being there is. Don't just say, there it is, fine. What's my mission in life? Freedom and total liberation. How do I discover that? By knowing who I am. This is part of who I am. This is all that's happening, right? And this desire, this stuff, this desire for extraordinary life couldn't be there if I wasn't here first. So which is more important, that desire or me? If I'm not here, it's not here. If it's not here, I'm still here. And desires can come and go, can't they? I don't come and go. That becomes more interesting and more important than having the extraordinary life. And when that does, you will have an extraordinary life, but it'll bear no resemblance to the one the ego is trying to create. How is that, my dear brother? Wonderful. Susanna, if someone triggers us so badly it affects our nervous system to the point of CPTSD flashbacks, is it okay just to stay away? Is there a way to heal the triggers permanently? Well, I would stay away, right? I mean, if once you learn that putting your hand in the fire, it hurts, you don't put your hand in the fire anymore. Stay away. Yeah, do stay away. But recognize that there, when I talk about the healing of the nervous system and bringing us out of the triggered state, I'm not proposing that we take every individual trigger we have and try to work it, right? That's like, that's like a sick tree, trying to fix a sick tree by cutting off all the leaves. It'll take forever, right? Cut it down, go to the root, right? And so when a trigger comes up, we're not trying to just overcome a trigger. We're trying to transcend all triggering and just working with one of them, whatever happens to be there in the moment, right, is working on the whole thing. So if someone has triggered you, just be with that. Now, I'd also drop the label of the CPTSD. I think it's chronic, post-traumatic stress disorder. When we label things, they tend to kind of stick around. They take on an entity in and of themselves. So instead, it's go, okay, when this happens, I have a reaction, and it even triggers flashbacks from the past. Okay, this is kind of the stew that's been set in front of me right now. Now, where am I in this? I'm going to take a step back from here. Okay? I can't just get rid of the trigger. Right? There's no place I can go inside and go, oh, there it is, and I go and pull it out. So in order for a healing to take place, my relationship to the trigger has to shift. Right? When my relationship with it shifts, the meaning of it shifts, the potency of it shifts, the authority of it shifts as well. And I become more and more the central authority and master of this world because I am not being pushed around by it. So even the desire, I got to get rid of this trigger, is misguided. The trigger is there. It's going to get triggered. It'll get triggered again. What happens? When the triggering mechanism happens, what it means is this. Break it down. An event has taken place in the environment. Right? Some event has occurred. And this event has in the nervous system an almost hardware, not really, it's firmware, right? A software connection between this event and a set of inner reactions, emotional and psychological. Right? Now, this connection between the event and this cascade of reactions is the triggering. Now, this connection is arbitrary. It's not absolute. It's not fixed and concrete. Even though there may be some, brain grooves that make it automatic, it's a soft connection. It got put in place because of experiences you had as a child. A different experience would have created a different connection, which means it's not hardwired. Now, if the event occurs, I feel all of this stuff, right? All of the reactions that are wanting me to push me in a certain behavior, both emotionally and behaviorally and psychologically, but I don't go there. I just stay right here. I watch them react. I feel them in the system, but I don't give life to them. What I've done is this. I've started to disconnect the event from the association that runs the cascade that we call the trigger. Going to this place, being with, and just feel it. The way I have people start is just feel it in the body and try not to label it with the mind. Don't even call it CPTSD flashbacks. Don't call it anything. Because in the moment, because the moment you call it something, you get a whole cascade of psychological and emotional reactions. But if it's just a sensation in my body at this moment, something is working, all this stuff is happening, and I can just be with the sensation without labeling it, I am doing this. And that gap will widen to the point where this will simply start to dissolve. And you'll begin to get freedom of choice, freedom of reactivity, and eventually this event will not trigger anything. And that's the process. That's why I use EFT, because it's very powerful at doing this, at helping you stay present, right? When it feels like everything in the world wants you to go running down that path that the trigger would normally have you running down. And this is the mechanism, and the means to heal it. So, thank you, Susanna. Mauna Maria. Mauna or Mauna? Mona. Maybe it's even pronounced Mona. Giving thanks for finding you just today. Greetings from Canada. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Glad to have you here. Eva, thank you, G, for this profound, uplifting satsang. So deeply resonating with me today. As you have just told, I don't experience the world or whatever as separate from myself. This became obvious. Beautiful. Roseanne, wow, yes, thank you. Ah, good. Love it. Wonderful, amazing response, dude. Thank you. You're welcome. That's somewhere deeper than only in mind. Good. All right. And we're at 2 hours and 4 minutes. Time to bring this all to a close. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the beautifully probing questions, and giving me the space to take them to the deepest answer. Because, based on who's here at any given time and the mix and the energy that I'm feeling, sometimes I can't go to certain places I'd like to because there's just not enough preparation. I don't force the absolute down people's throats. I've learned that there's an art to teaching this, and I have to bring people to it. I have to bring you to the place where you can go, oh, this is beyond, I am beyond mind. It is all myself, from a direct seeing, and not just a kind of an appropriation, or not just conceptual, but genuinely real. So, my dear friends, it's so good to see you all. Thank you for being here. I love you all. Namaste.